right, I think we're good. Should be able to hear me. Should be able to see me. I can see you. And I've done the social posting, so I think we're ready to roll. Hello. Hello, Ghost Bodefeld. Hello, Brian. Nice to see you. Hello, Margaret. From the other room. Interesting username and hello. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Building the puppets yet again. Making sure all of the numbers look okay. No drop frames. Nothing seems out of the ordinary. I think we're all right. See, I'm just gonna poke the Twitch channel. Yes, Ghost of Bodefeld. It did go to a school in Poland, which it turns out was the pink and orange greebly, if I remember, and that turns out it just happens to be the school colors. So, you often know your puppets live and work like schools and kindergarten. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do get to find out what their fate has been, and it's often quite nice. There's been a lot of schools. There's been a few YouTube channels. There's a Hall of Fame section on the website that has quite a few of where a lot of my puppets have ended up in public-facing work. But there are a whole bunch of schools. I know that there's been some like doctors' offices and like dentists and stuff like that who would, you know, just to help the kids relax and enjoy themselves and that kind of thing. So yeah, so schools are probably, of anything other than like, you know, YouTube channels and things like that, and just collectors. It's usually schools that are a big wanter of my builds, at least, and which just makes sense, you know. But yeah, schools, doctors' offices, YouTube channels. Off the top of my head, that's probably, and collectors are probably the biggest, you know, collectors by far, and people who just like puppets and who just want, you know, like I keep saying, when you are interested in puppetry, very rarely just have one puppet, right? You build a collection. So yeah, so it's cool. It's really nice to know. I love finding out when, you know, I love people to stay in touch, and like, you know, I call them clients and not customers for a reason, because I do consider it to be like an ongoing, you know, relationship. So I love to know what happens to them, because it's a personal thing, right? You put care and work into this kind of thing, and it's nice to know that it goes to a nice result. So yeah, there we go. I just want to poke Twitch for a second to make sure that it's going. I think it is. Obviously, we know Ohmcast and YouTube are going, so let's just make sure that we're good on Twitch. Yep, looks like we are. Okay, cool. So yeah, we got a bunch of stuff to do today. We are rolling. I don't know. I know it's a little early to get into the business end of things, but we're still waiting for folks to file in, see if any of the regulars show up, other than who's already here. Ghost of Bodefeld's always the first, always. You just wait for it. I don't know. But yeah, so there was a new video posted yesterday. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll know which one it is. It's the one I really dislike clickbaity titles and, you know, hyperbolic shocked guy thumbnails and all that kind of thing. But sometimes you got to do it, right? And so that was the situation where I felt like this warrants a clickbait title. So yeah, there's a new video up. It's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, and it's on PeerTube as well. So go check that. You'll know it as soon as you see it. But yes, the actual TLDR of the whole process is that I am resuming shipping to the United States, which is good news for my US clients. But the prices will not be raising. I will just be covering the cost of the tariffs myself, which is painful, but it's, you know, something is better than nothing. And it's entirely possible that these tariffs, it turns out, I was misinformed, that they actually have been ruled not legal, but there's like appeals challenges to go through, and that's what's going to happen in October. So it's up in the air whether these tariffs will continue past October or not. We still don't know. But nevertheless, for at least October, there will be tariffs, and I will have to be covering them. So that means 35% of the sale of every puppet is just going into Trump's pocket, frankly. And that's not good. I don't want to do that, but it's a matter of either, having a client base or not. So it's an extortion racket, and the extortion racket's working. Anyway, that's enough nasty politics, because we got a lot to get through. We should probably just motor on and wait for folks to file in as we go, because we got stuff to do. And let me show you what we are doing today. First of all, I'm going to get a lozenge, because there will be a lot of talking, as there usually is on a live stream. I mean, nobody wants dead air. Okay. Jimmy is also in the shop, just FYI. He's currently sleeping, but I may have to kick him out at some point. Not quite yet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be shooting a tutorial video, and the tutorial video is going to be shot into two halves. Last video was amazing. The way you addressed the issue with Cable, the solution was great. Most businesses would just force the tariffs onto the consumer, which sucks. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like I said, I didn't, money is tight enough as it is, and puppets are a luxury, and I'm aware of that. So me raising my prices is just not even on the table. It's unfortunately, because believe me, I do not make a lot of money from this, but it is a matter of staying in business or not, and hopefully it's just a storm we can ride out. That's my approach right now, so we'll see. Thank you very much. So yeah, we are going to shoot a tutorial video today, and the tutorial video is going to be shot in two halves. So we're going to shoot the first half of it this week and the second half next week, and I'll show you why. Actually, I can show you why right now. Because we're going to be dyeing some foam. We got some foam here. We're going to dye it, and that of course means that I have to, the first part of the tutorial video is going to be how do you actually dye foam, and then that foam has to be taken out and wrung out and dry and let sit for a while and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. Dylan, nice to see you. Welcome. So yeah, so we're going to be shooting the first half of the foam dyeing tutorial this week. Next week, we will shoot the bit where the foam is now dried, and we're going to be carving a foam tongue, which is one of the most common uses of carved dyed foam. So there we go. 30 years old now, you're a child. I, by way of contrast, am going to be 57 in a couple of weeks. Enjoy your 30 years. Congratulations. And these are the good years, believe me. Even though I know it probably doesn't seem like it right now. You will look back with fondness on it. Yeah, so anyway, that's the first thing that we're going to do, is shooting the first half of the tutorial video. The second thing we are going to work on, and at least start on stream, I don't know how far we're going to get, is I am prototyping, as I mentioned in the Trump video yesterday, I am prototyping some new models for the shops that are a smaller profile and a lower price point than a lot of my more common builds, just to give something that people can more likely afford. And I'm in the process of prototyping those, so we're going to be, ow, that hurt. We're going to be working on those a little bit later. And I basically have to do some pattern alterations, and I'm also doing something funky with the mouth plate that I haven't done before. So I'm just going to be kind of experimenting with that and seeing how it goes. It may not go well, but that's part of the process, is you just try stuff and see how it works, and if it doesn't work, you figure out why and how to make it work. So here we go. So yeah, I'm gonna have a couple of more sips of coffee, and then we are going to get on with shooting the first half of the tutorial. Because like I said, there's a lot to do. And then after this stream, I have a somewhat secret project I literally just thought of before we went live that I really, really want to do, and it's going to be for the Oracle. So there's going to be some new Oracle stuff soon. So right now, in terms of what I'm actually building, the process is I'm prototyping some new models. I don't know if you've seen the Trump Hates Puppets video from yesterday, but I am in fact prototyping some new stuff for the shop that will come in at a lower price point, just to give it easier for people to be able to afford stuff. And I'm still in the early days of prototyping those, so that's what we're going to be working on after I shoot the foam dyeing tutorial. I'll reveal what those are going to be when we get there. There's going to be a whole bunch of different ones, but I'm doing kind of the basic structure right now. There we go. And I am currently 3D printing part of the secret project, so I will not be revealing what that is. That's going to be a big surprise, and it's going to be just some fun content for the channel. It's not going to be it's not going to be anything for sale, which feels like all I talk about anymore, and I kind of want to get away from that. I don't want to get away from it, but I want to have more stuff. I want to have stuff people just enjoy, that kind of thing. If people show up, right, and eventually that will, in theory at least, trickle down to people will go to the shop and buy puppets. That's what I'm hoping for. We're just trying to create a nice, friendly atmosphere for people to enjoy themselves in. Okay, we should probably get on with things. Because I gotta wear gloves and I'm gonna have to take the jewelry off. I keep forgetting about that. We'll just get ahead of that now if I don't have to do it on the tutorial video. And let's see, set up here. Frame everything right. Ooh, the 3D print just finished. You can't see what it is, it's a secret. Let's see, nope, that's not. That's it. There we go, that'll work. I just like to frame things. I'm gonna hide the chat now. I will still be able to see it, so if anybody says anything. But for anybody who's new, which I think we might have a new person or two, I will often shoot a tutorial video during these live streams, and to do that I just hide the chat, because we don't need the chat on there for tutorial video, but I can still see chat, so not to worry. Okay, I think this looks pretty good for some framing here. I am gonna have to leave the studio for a second and come back, so there will be an edit for this, because I gotta get some hotish water in the bin here. So, and I have to work fast when that happens. So, because you want the water to still maintain the temperature. I can't let it sit and cool. So we'll just see how it goes. This is going to be a relatively quick one, I think, because there's actually not a lot to it. So just get on with that. Let me hit the 3D printer here and say, yes, thank you very much. Good job. I wonder if I can grab this. I'm teasing. No, it's not ready to come off the build plate yet. Never mind. Okay, we gotta let that cool. I'm just hyped. I've got energy based on fear at the moment. So that's good, though. I, like most things, I use it to propel myself forward. So, yeah, okay, we are going to proceed with the puppet building tutorial video. Let me just blow my nose before we start, because, oh no, nobody wants to hear that. Keep the mic for a second. Okay, I see the mic levels. Everything looks good. Okay, let us proceed. Kim Dracula shirt, really appropriate for puppets, Kevin. Anyway. Hello and welcome to another tips, tricks, and tutorials video. And this time we are doing something that I don't think I've ever seen covered before on a puppet building tutorial video. So, and it's just a quick one, but I think it's very useful and handy. And it's something that I will often do to kind of elevate the visual appeal of the puppet, and it's surprising how effective it is. So what the end goal is we're going to do a carved foam tongue made with dyed foam. So the first part of this is to actually dye the foam. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to cut to a part 2, and that will be the actual foam after it's been dyed and dried, carving that into the actual shape of the tongue that will then go in the puppet's mouth. So here's what we're looking at. Let me go to the overhead bin. I'm fine. Anyway, here's what you're going to need. You are, of course, going to need some foam, and I just have some chunks of scrap foam that's left over from doing other builds. This is a really good use for that kind of thing, FYI. So save your large scraps and then just cut them into slabs like this. So there you go. You're going to need something to put the water and dye in that hopefully is not going to get stained, or you don't care if it gets stained. So I just use a large plastic bin like this. And then you're going to need some kind of fabric dye. There are common brands. RIT dye is one of the most common brands. There are other dyes and other brands available. As long as it's fabric dye, it should work. It doesn't really matter if it's powder or liquid. I know they get both. I generally try and go for the powder, just because with the liquid, you're just paying for water, right? It's the same stuff. It's just also dissolved in water, so you're just paying for more water. And so you don't need to do that. You get more actual dye when you get the dry stuff, so do that. But that being said, I do have a little bit of this red dye, but there's only like that much in it. So there isn't enough, excuse me, to do a whole batch, but I thought I would just toss this into the existing batch. We're actually mixing brands. It's going to be a real superhero origin story. We're going to mix some chemicals here. So this is just I don't know, Intex. I don't know. I've never even heard of them before. They were cheap. So you don't need the good stuff for this. Dye is dye. Dye, as long as the color will stay, that's all you really care about. So the first thing that you have to do is get some hot-ish water. Now, for dyeing fabric, you want the water quite hot, and you also want to put some salt in it. You don't want to do necessarily either of those things for foam. You want the water slightly, I know to say how hot, I mean, you almost want boiling. Fabric, in some fabrics you do want boiling. Anything that's synthetic, you probably don't want to get the boiling, because it's literally just plastic and it will melt. So just hot enough that you can still touch it, but you don't want it cool. You want it, you want to see some steam coming off that thing. So that's the goal. For foam is a little bit more delicate, and this stuff can, dissolve or melt quite easy. So not quite that hot, but you still want it to be hot. You still want it to be like as hot as you can get it. Generally out of the tap is what I use. I don't bother putting on a kettle or anything for this. I would for fabric or fur, but not foam. Foam is relatively forgiving on the dye department. So there you go. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have to go and get the hot water in the other room here, because I don't have a hot water tap in the studio, obviously. So I'm gonna go and do that, and then we gotta work kind of fast. So let me set this up. What I'm gonna do, obviously you want gloves, because you don't want to dye your hands no matter what your skin tone happens to be. It will dye, and it will just probably not look very nice. So you don't want to do that. We are using red in this case. You don't have to do any particular color. I mean, I've done lots of different colors. I will often do oranges and purples and use them for like ears or eye bags or little features or whatever. There's all kinds of things you can do. Any color is on the table. I just use red as the most common, because tongues are the most common thing that I use this technique for. So that's what we're doing today. So when I get the hot water, what we're gonna have to do is move relatively quickly, get the dye in there, and then get the foam going in there. So let me go and get that hot water, and I will be back momentarily as soon as I can. Cut. I just want to do that so I can actually see the video where I should edit it. I've also got a bit of a frog in my throat. That's bad. I think I just hit the mic. I apologize. Get another lozenge before we continue. Okay. I'm gonna go get some hot water. As hot as I can make it. Will a foam tongue affect the mouth hinge? Nope, not at all. And that's one of the nice things about, I'll actually answer that question when I come back and we're dyeing it. Because I think that more people probably have a question like that. So no is the quick answer. And I'll explain why when we get there. After the foam gets absorbed. Or do you have to think about the height? Yeah, no, it's a good question. And let me get to it. But definitely put a pin in that because we'll come back to it. Okay, I'm gonna go get some hot water. I'm not gonna put the Be Right Back screen on, just enjoy the nice grid. Hello, Jimmy. Jimmy is still laying on the floor directly in my path. Hi. Yeah. I have to put this often. Yeah, I'm going to be coming back with a tub full of hot water, buddy. You may not want to be there. No, of course you do, because you're a cat. All right. You can probably still hear me, because I'm in a room that's very close. The bathroom is quite close to the studio here. I'm just trying to decide, should I put it in the bathtub, or... I think it'll be okay. Excuse me. Actually, I will have to put it in the bathtub because the sink is not big enough to fit this bin. Hey, Jimmy left. All right, I am coming back. Here we go. There's our hot water, or hot-ish water. I really have to get this frog out of my throat before we go on. Good heavens. Okay. There we go. All right. So. Okay, we're back. So in this bin is a couple of inches of water as hot as it will come out of the tap. That is what you want. And we got to work relatively quickly because we don't want the water to cool too much. So let's go. And then we can have a little talk. We had a very good question in the chat. And that we'll talk about with the carved foam tongue. So I'm just getting the gloves on, and it's not easy because my hands are slightly damp from putting the water on. So. But you want your gloves for sure. Okay. The tidiest job I've ever done, but it'll do. So you just get the dye in there. We're gonna put quite a lot of dye. You want it very, very dark. There is no, I mean, as far as I'm aware, there is no real formula for how intense the color is going to be. Put a lot of dye in. It's going to end up considerably lighter than what the dye looks like. So I am only going to use one package because there isn't a lot here. So we'll just set this aside for future tongues, which is a very odd sentence. Bump the camera. And we'll just open this up. In goes the powder. So this is, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 inches of hot water and a whole packet of the powder dye and a little bit of the liquid that I had left over. Do not, I repeat, do not put anything in there that you don't want to get dyed. So I've just got a little chopstick here. We're just gonna stir that around. Get the soup all going, and be prepared to shoot a horror movie apparently, because it kind of looks like that. Somebody call Wes Craven. Okay. Here we go. So now it's relatively straightforward because this is foam. This is basically a big old sponge. So I'm just gonna stand up for this, so forgive my torso. But you just get in there, and what you want to do is you want to squeeze it real good and get that dye. Now you can see already how much lighter the foam is compared to the dye. But you really want to get it all like thoroughly soaked. Really give her some squeezes, and then like you want to wring it out and then let it sort of soak back up again. And you will probably find, unless you really worked at this, that even when you carve it, there's going to be some sort of lighter areas, some slight marbling, as it were. That's okay. You can work around that. There we go. So we're just going to do the rest of the pieces here. Leave them in. And we're going to let this, after we're done sponging up all of the dye, we're just going to let this sit. And that's really it for the first bit. This is as simple as it can be. You will probably get some splashing, so it's good to not fill your bin up too much, because you're gonna have some splashing. Be aware of that. Don't wear your good clothes. Unless you wear all black. Then you're fine. Okay. And the last piece. Now you may want to, and it would be a very good idea, as this stuff sits in the soup, to come by occasionally and just give it another good old squeeze. Try and get all of the liquid distributed evenly throughout it, which isn't necessarily easy, but you will find better results if you do that. So here we go. And how long you do this for, the longer the better. You will have better results the more you can thoroughly work that dye through the foam. Really get in there and give her a good squeeze. Please don't clip that audio bit. That's context is important. Okay, there we go. That is basically it. And like I said, you want to come back occasionally if you can and give it another ring through and just squeeze it through and all that kind of stuff. You want to get all of the liquid thoroughly distributed. Jimmy is yelling. Jimmy, just come in. There we go. Door is open. Okay, so I'm going to take these gloves off. I did get a little bit of dye on me. That's okay. So, what we're going to do now is you want to let that sit. How long? Really depends on how intense you want the color. If you only want a slight tint, you could take it out now. I wouldn't advise doing that though. But the longer you let it sit, the more intense your color is going to be. There will be kind of an upper threshold to how intense it can get. That will depend on the concentration of the dye. But that's it. So just let it sit. Just forget about it. Just put it in the corner and don't worry about it. Or if you do remember, come back and occasionally bring it through. Always wear gloves, remember. So we did have a question in the chat that I will address before we close out this part, and I'm going to shoot part 2 next week. So there was a question in the chat about will a foam tongue affect mouth hinge? Or do you think about, do you have to think about the height of the foam when making the puppet head? Neither is the case. The good news is because it's foam, it will just compress. So you don't really have to think about it at all. What you do have to think about is the kind of footprint of the tongue. But as long as that will fit in the mouth, you're probably good. Hello, Jimmy. Yes, I know you're still here. I'm trying to remember if I have, oh, I do. I do have one character here with a foam tongue, and you haven't seen this character for a while. But I can demonstrate this. Oh, you know what? I can demonstrate it even closer. I don't want to pull that character out just yet. But I can demonstrate it with somebody you do recognize. Because this is the same principle. Here we go. Hey everybody, it's me. What do you want? I'm busy. Guy works me like you wouldn't believe and then says, no, you're gonna be on a live stream. So Frankie's teeth are actually carved foam. One of the reasons that I can do this is because when his mouth closes, they just compress. And this has been like this for, I don't know, 3-4 years of relatively high use, and they're still fine. So that's the same principle as the foam tongue. It will just compress and then it will spring back. So you don't have to worry about the height at all. I feel like I'm in the medical classroom. This is not good. Can I please go? I want to go. Okay. I'm gonna put Frankie back. But yeah, no, you don't have to worry about the height at all. Okay. There's going to be an edit there for sure. So that's all we're going to do for now. The next step is after you've left that for, I don't know, a couple of hours even, like, again, longer the better. When you're ready, what you want to do is you want to wring it out, rinse it, but don't really like clean it. Just get it rinsed until the water runs clear. Then you want to put it somewhere to dry. What I usually do is we have these little hooks that by a window, and I just put them on the hooks and let them sit. They're for like, like kitchen towels and stuff like that. I'll put up a picture of it when I actually do that process. But, and you have to just wait and wait and wait for them to be thoroughly dried. That is the goal. You just want to wait and give it a couple of days even. If you can put them in the sun, that's good because the sun will also slightly yellow the foam. So the color you end up with will be the true color. And that's important. But that's it. Yeah, if you just you gotta put it somewhere where they're kind of hanging in the air and let it dry. And then we will come back and talk about the foam carving part of this, because that is the whole separate subject. So that's part 1, and I'll do some kind of a clock wipe here or something, and we'll go to part 2. So see you in part 2. There we go. That's the first half of the tutorial video shot. And there's chat back. Frankie's teeth yellow. Frankie's teeth have yellowed over time. That is quite yellow compared to what they were at first. Nice to see you, Dylan. Thank you. So yeah, that is very much the case, particularly with any kind of standard polyfoam. It will definitely yellow over time. Demon Dreamer, nice to see you. You missed the tutorial video. That's okay. It's going to be a tutorial video, so it'll be up on the channel. So that was, I wish they were all that quick. Now I gotta decide where I'm gonna put this bucket of blood. Wow, what a sight this is, let me tell you. This is sure something. I guess I will set it in the bathtub for the moment. Everybody has bathed and showered today, so I don't think it will be necessary. Give me 1 sec. I'll just go pop this in a place where I know it's not going to get dealt with by cats. Hello, Jimmy. Jimmy's back. Walk it over to the bathtub, and then we'll just set it in the bottom of the bathtub for safekeeping for now, till the end of the stream. Okay. Now what? Well, I'm gonna have a little bit more coffee. Yeah, so Demon Dreamer, you may, if you're around next week, this is actually, I need to shoot this in 2 parts. So this was part 1, and we'll be shooting part 2 next week. So it's for dyeing foam and then carving that foam into a foam tongue. Blood in a container to have to wash. Yeah, that was the dyeing of the foam part, and next week will be the carving of the foam. So that is how that goes. But of course, in between those 2 things, the foam has to be like taken out and dried, stuff like that, which just takes time. So that's why I thought I'd shoot this in 2 halves. There we go. But yeah, it does look rather like a horror movie. Oh, good old coffee. Okay, so let me talk about what we're gonna do next. What time is it? 10:30. That's nothing. We got buckets of time and blood. More lozenge. So like I said on the Trump video, I can't even believe that's the sentence I'm saying. I am prototyping a new model. The goal of this model is to be relatively quick to make, quicker than like a Greebly, but not as quick as a Sonk, for example. If you don't know my work, these are standard models that I have on the shop that I often will sell. And they are coming in at different price points. The Sonk puppets, which is an intentional joke, or sock puppet, they are basically just a tube with a mouth. And they're very good sort of beginner entry-level practice puppets, and they're also the least expensive. And then I have things like Greeblies, which are a very common type of rod arm puppet. And they're relatively, I mean, they're not hugely complex, but they're more complex than something like a simple tube. And so they take a lot more time. And what the goal is here is to kind of have something in between those 2, because it's either like a few hours or a few days. that's the option that we have here. And I want something that I can kind of make a couple of maybe in a day or 2. That is the goal. And yes, they are going to have a foam structure. So here's the concept. The frame rate gone weird. Too late to worry about it now. So yeah, they will have a foam structure, but what I'm thinking is, because another goal is to make them small-ish, to be able to get them in a smaller box than you can when you've got something with arm rods, because arm rods average about 18 inches, and so you literally cannot get them in any box that's smaller than 18 inches, obviously. And so that adds the shipping cost. And I'm just trying to reduce the cost to the client down as much as possible by reducing the shipping cost and reducing labor hours. So what the concept is are basically balls. they're sort of a Pac-Man type shape that I will be able to like attach features onto. So like stubby little arms and legs and whatever kind of interesting funky facial features. So my first thought was a frog, just like a big old blobby frog. And what I'd like to do is a kind of a frown, like a big mouth frown. But in order to do that, I'm doing a curved mouth plate, which I really like. So let me show you what I got going on here. This is an experiment. This may in fact not work, but well, you know what, I can even show a comparison. Here we go. So here are my standard kind of mouth plates, right? I 3D print all my mouth plates. So this is the top jaw, this is the bottom jaw. Pac-Man frog, yeah, exactly. This pattern, FYI, is exactly the same pattern that I did a long time ago when I did the playlist for how to design your own puppet pattern from absolute scratch with nothing but a pencil and paper, which is a playlist on the YouTube and PeerTube channels that you can watch. And this is that same pattern. I'm starting from that. So this is my pattern. I'm not altering anybody else's pattern, but this will require some alterations. So here is the mouth plate as it stands, okay? Top and bottom, or bottom and top, depending on if you want an overbite or an underbite. And what I want to do is curve them, so you can curve them relatively easily if you do the kind of Kermit style where it's got a bit of a snout and curve it that way, or the other way, either create a sort of a smile or a frown. But the tricky part is I want to do it up horizontally, not vertically, right? So that means, and all I do is, because these are 3D printed, I just heat it up with a hairdryer and I manually bend them into curves. So here's what I've got. So as you can see, this is the same mouth plate, but it's got this lateral curve. And the tricky part here is this will definitely affect the hinge, because the way these normally go together, as you may know, is you basically create a little hinge at the top and bottom part. This is not easy to show, but you create a hinge like that, right? That is not necessarily how these are going to work. Because of the curve, it creates this kind of offset between the top and bottom jaw, where the bottom jaw then is not set flush because of the curve is kind of going against, right? So it wants to either push it in or keep it flush, in which case I think what the solution will be is to create the middle part of the hinge here as just loose fabric to give it the room to be able to move. And that's something I've kind of done before. I like a loose hinge, because, and performers like them too, because you know, it's just easier to do more stuff with the puppet if the bottom jaw is much looser, and you don't only have to do this. You can, you know, move it around and stuff. So that's good, only if this will work though. So there's a couple of things I'm thinking, is because we want to do a relatively decent sized just piece of fabric in the middle there so that it will flex. We do have to make some alterations to the pattern, because it means basically the overall size of the head is going to get bigger. And we also have to decide how we're going to do a robust hinge. What I've been doing lately is I've been using some not fleece. Wow, my brain just stopped there. Microfiber suede, that's what it is. Wow, which is basically like an artificial, very thin leather. And I've been making a very strong hinge first before I, you know, glue this into the fabric, mouth plate or whatever. I think if I do that, we're probably going to be good. The other thing that you want to consider is, if you're going to do a big fabric hinge in your mouth plate, Grover is a good example of this, actually. Grover has, yes, Jimmy, Grover, you heard me. Should we cameo Jimmy? Yeah, you want up? Here we go. Here's the one who's been yelling. Yeah. I have a lozenge and he doesn't like the menthol, so here we go. Say hi to the nice people, you know. Okay? Can you go now? I'm trying to talk to the nice people. Jimmy's got to have a cameo almost every stream. We actually do have two cats. You never know it, but we have two. The other one's camera shy. Yeah, so Grover is a very good example of this, to getting back on track. Grover has a very loose hinge, and that's why, like, you see, well, when somebody performs Grover, they can do all the neat things with the bottom jaw and slide it sideways as well as up and down. And that's because there's just a big fabric hinge back there. It isn't fixed, right? So that's basically what we're doing. But you'll also notice that Grover's mouth is entirely black. I remember, just by way of an aside, when the pandemic started and they were shooting all the Sesame Street stuff from their apartments with just iPhones and things, and their lighting wasn't the best, obviously. I remember there was like at least one shot of Grover where it's like the light was shining directly into his mouth, which you don't normally see on the professionally shot stuff, and you can very clearly see just the loose fabric back there. It did not look great, to be honest. But that's just the nature of the beast, right? You could have a bunch of loose fabric back there. You want it to be relatively obscured. So that means that our color choice of the fabric to line the mouth is going to affect this. It's going to be black. If it's not black, you're going to see this big wrinkly fabric in the back, which is not going to look good. But if it's black, it'll probably just blend in. Depending on your lighting, of course. Don't put a ring light directly pointed into their mouth and you should be fine. But that's what this means, that it's going to have to be a black interior mouth, which is usually what I prefer anyway. It does kind of, if things are get a little wrinkle or something, you just don't see it because it's just black. So that's what we're going to do. But the first experiment is to make the alterations to the skull pattern that we're going to need to accommodate the big hinge. So I'm thinking about maybe maybe 2 centimeters, which is, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches. We want it relatively big because there's a lot of differential here between, like, when the bottom jaw is open. I know it's kind of tough to make out because it's all red, but nevertheless, when you think about this opening, right, you want these two planes, as it were, the interior of the mouth, to be joined, but that means that this is getting pushed way far back, right? So there's a reason why they usually don't do curves like this. We're going to see if we can make it work. It is entirely possible that the answer is no. So that's what we're doing. We're finding out. We're effing around and finding out. It's in a very family-friendly way. So let's commence to F around. So I've got the pattern right here, and I'm okay with showing this on stream, and so it's got a little spot of red dye on there for some mysterious reason. Because this is literally the pattern that we made on stream from scratch. So this is 100% original. I don't understand fully why you need to make them curved. Yeah, that is it. The hinge part itself gets funky. Now I think that can be solved with the big fabric loose hinge, but I'm not sure, because I've never done it, how that's actually going to affect the kind of performance of the puppet and how that will actually look IRL. That's what we're going to find out. But like I said, the first thing we have to do is, basically, because we're adding, about 1 inch of length, as it were, from the axial point of the hinge to the end, we just have to make a slight alteration to this pattern to accommodate. That, thankfully, is nice and easy. Let's grab, as I should have been prepared, grab some cardstock. I think I have some. Yes, I do. And we'll grab a pencil. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to transfer this pattern onto a new piece of cardstock, which just trace it. Super easy. Same everything. I'm not going to do the cutout here, the little Pac-Man cutout. We don't need it for this. What this is for, FYI, in case you're not aware, you'll often see puppet patterns like this where there's a big circular cutout where the hinge is, and that's You can make the cheek bulge more depending on the piece of foam that you put in here. If you put a piece of foam that's slightly larger than the actual cutout, it will make sort of pudgy cheeks. And you can also do a softer foam here than you have to for the skull, and that means the jaw will be looser and easier to perform. That's what that's about. But I'm not going to worry about that for the moment, because we won't be getting there, and that won't be a factor at all in this particular build, because we're doing this big fabric foam hinge. I may do pudgy cheeks, but if I do, I'll just put a piece on the outside. So we're just going to extend this point where the two lines cross, because there we go, that's the actual. It's a little tough to see that on the camera. So basically all we want to do, and I'm not even going to measure this, I'm just going to eyeball it, which is definitely going to work, is we just want to extend this length a little bit, right? How long do prototypes take you until you're satisfied? Oh, that varies wildly. My puppet's hinge makes it really hard to move. I get a free workout when I try to move the mouth a little. I know, there are some puppets that are just physically constructed like that. It's good to try and, if you can, make it with a more loose jaw for obvious reasons. For the same reason that you want to make it as light as possible, because it's a repeated motion that the performer is doing and it adds up quickly. So yeah, if you can make a loose hinge, that is far preferable to a not loose hinge. As Saskia, you can attest, because a puppet that's difficult to perform or uncomfortable to perform is just not going to get used, right? Because why would you? So yeah, definitely aim for a looser jaw if you can. Sometimes just the physical construction of the puppet, the design of the puppet doesn't allow for that. So it is situational, but if you can, do a loose jaw. So there we go. All I've done is I've just extended the length a little bit. Actually, I did this one wrong. See, I've already made a mistake. I did that. That's the wrong line. This line. That way. And this isn't going to be precise because it's fabric, because it's meant to be sort of expandable, tractable, right? So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. We're going to bring it up to just match. Kind of see what I've done there. And again, I'm just eyeballing it, but I like doing it this way because you do get a more organic shape out of it, rather than if you're just like measuring stuff and trying to do it precisely. Measuring definitely has its uses, but it also, there are places where it's nicer to just kind of freeform it, and this is one of those places that I like to more freeform. Or mileage meter. There we go. We've just added a little bit of length onto each side of the mouth plate to accommodate for the hinge that's going to go in the middle here. That's all. Super simple. So now we get to cut it out and build it. Which means that we are going to need to open the window and get the danger honey out and all that good stuff. And that also means we have to kick Jimmy out, because I don't like him in here when there's dangerous fumes around, for obvious reasons. Also don't want to get glue on the cat. Don't glue the cat. And this is how I do most of my patterns, this kind of process. So my prototyping process can be a bit lengthy, because sometimes I don't even get remotely close to what I'm aiming for, in which case I have to try again. So it's a little bit inefficient, but I like the kind of organicness of the process. it's fun to just draw a shape, build it in foam, and just see what it looks like. You will find surprising things emerge and give you other ideas. So this isn't a good method for if you're going for a specific thing, but if you have a vague idea and you're just messing around, want to see what you come up with, this is a really good method. So there we go. There's our new pattern. You know, always save your scraps. There's always stuff you can do with it. Always not, want not. Now we're going to make this in foam. And then, when it's time to get the glue out, we're going to first make the fabric hinge, and then we're going to glue it into the skull. Or make the skull and then glue it to the skull. Let me just set this aside because we do not need it. And get me another lozenge. And I'm afraid, Jimmy, the time is coming very soon. You to leave. He's looking at me like, no. Okay, another lozenge for me. Let me get set up first before we do the door closing. Oh, you know, I can cut the foam out first. We don't have to kick Jimmy out quite yet. I always feel bad when I have to kick him out. He always takes it so personally. For your own good, buddy. Grab a Sharpie here. I'm planning to do a puppet from an existing animated animal. The mouth doesn't really move. It's more important to have animated eyes and ears for the creature. What's a good strategy for this? It really depends on what the animation is. Eyes can get very, very, very complex. Ears are a little bit more feasible, I find. It really depends on what kind of movement do you want the eyes to do, right? Did you ever get a Halloween costume? No, I don't think that would go down well. I haven't tried, to be honest. Every day is Halloween around here. But yeah, so if you want, like, depends on if you want them blinking, if you want the eyes to actually like move side to side and or up and down. Both is really impossible without some pretty high tech. But ears, interestingly enough, are something I've been thinking about toying around with because there is a fairly simple mech that you can do. It's a bunny ear mech that basically just involves, I don't know if I have any easily available, but you want to get some PVC tubing. This is the way to do, this is not just for ears, but this is for like a tail or for anything that's sort of long that you want to curve and curve back. I don't have any tubing easy to hand. I do have a bunch. It's basically stiff PVC tubing. It's a little like aquarium tubing, but it is stiffer. It's more rigid. And you can just run a line up that, like a fishing line, and anchor it at one end, a button or a bead or something. And then if you can figure out a way to 3D print, or you can make a base for it, when you pull the line, it will curve the tube, and you can even cut notches into it. One day I may demonstrate this. It's hard to describe, but you basically create a spring return, right? Because the tube wants to bend back, but it only wants to bend one way when you pull the string. So you're just creating like a thing that goes like that. And it's a really good way to make a fairly simple, easy to install mech for doing like ears that curve down or a tail that curls up, that kind of thing. It's called the bunny ear mech because it's often used for bunny ears. But that is a much more feasible thing than eyes. Eyes either rotating or blinking, that kind of thing. It really depends on what they look like. Something with like eyelid shells, for example, you can have to get in the weeds with that kind of thing. So I'm afraid the answer is it depends, and it's always complex. I wish there were a better answer for that. Even with 3D printing, it's still fairly involved. There are a bunch of different solutions. None of them are fantastic. but you basically do what you can. And it's not easy. And it's more complex than I can describe in this format, at least. It would have to be like its own discrete tutorial. Yeah, one day I may demonstrate the bunny ear mech, because I've actually been thinking about putting the Oracle. I think that would be pretty fun to have the Oracle ears be able to go down and up. So yeah, that's a future tutorial. I think I like the bunny ear mech idea. So first thing we're gonna do is cut this out. I should probably go to the right camera. Yeah, there are a bunch of, if you go to like Thingiverse or you know, like one of the more common open source 3D print model download places, you can get like Puppet iMechs and stuff like that. Fursuit enthusiasts will also sometimes upload these kind of things. There are mechs that you can get in 3D print, but they're very specific, and so they may not match your build or not. So it would be at least helpful if you can make alterations to them. If you know how to do that, if you know how to work 3D modeling software, then that's a big advantage. There's one very common Puppet iMech that you'll find on like Thingiverse and stuff like that, but the eyes are very, very small. It's a bit odd. Yeah, some libraries do have 3D printers for use. It's true. And unfortunately, the absolute best answer is have a 3D printer. I wish it were different. I think we do have a 3D printer, but yeah, check libraries. There are often, and many cities have maker spaces where you can go and just like use equipment, get a membership, just use equipment that you don't necessarily own. Tool libraries, that kind of thing. Honestly, I resisted 3D printing for a long time because I felt that this wasn't ready for the kind of non-fiddliness that I need. But I can't look back now. It solves so many problems. It opens up so many more possibilities. I know it's a big budgetary constraint, but there are major advantages. So I'm just rough cutting this out, and then we will do the nice fine detail cutting out in a second here. Get some more foam soon. Okay, let's grab a razor blade very, very carefully. Once again, every time I do this, I say that this blade probably isn't sharp. This blade probably isn't sharp. Do the planning phase first. Yeah, absolutely. The more planning that you do, the less mistakes will happen later, right? But definitely work on the planning. Measure twice, cut once. Kind of a situation, right? Just cutting this out. Blade actually isn't too bad. Music got very funky. There we go. This is a very, very standard round head. This is just like, basically you just make Pac-Man. Which is what put me in the mind of the frog. But like I said, the nice part about doing this kind of thing is if I can make it so the limbs are a bit like my smalls, if you're familiar with those. They just have kind of small floppy limbs that aren't controlled, right? They just kind of flop around. So you don't need to put arm rods on them. Therefore, you can get them in a smaller box. That's kind of the goal with this as well. But it has to have a lot of personality. That is my whole thing, right? It's got to really, when you see the puppet, you have to go, oh, you know, there has to be that moment. If I can't get there, then it doesn't fly. But this is just where experience comes in. There's nothing that won't work. You just have to figure out how to make it work. Okay, here we go. We have now cut out our foam head. I thought with loose hinge, the jaw has to be separate for it to be able to move side to side. Kind of. We're doing, and you're not wrong, absolutely. We're doing a kind of loose hinge where it's not, the goal isn't necessarily to have it move side to side. It's to just allow for the kind of lateral movement that it needs to do, the curve. So we're not necessarily going for a side to side, although it will be able to move side to side a little bit because of the loose hinge. But yeah, if you can put an elastic, like a stretchy fabric back there, that's even better. But I'm more interested in going for strength and stability than elasticity, because obviously it's a stress point. And so with repeated use, that may develop faults, it may need to be repaired. And I try to get my puppets as non-fault prone as possible, because I am just selling to the general public, right? Who don't necessarily want to have maintenance costs with their puppets as well. So I try to get them as robust as I can, which is the goal here. And that's why we're going to do the hinge in a piece of microfiber suede, because it's nice and strong. So, excuse me for a second, I'm going to stand up and get the microfiber suede. I'm trying to put off kicking Jimmy out for as long as possible, but it's not going to be much longer. We're going to have to go for it, bud. I also have to be very careful not to roll over his tail. His tail is like inches away from my chair wheel. This is the trials of living with a cat. Okay, so this is just a piece of ultra suede, which is basically it's an artificial leather. It's very, very, very strong. And I use this for a lot of structural stuff. So I don't even really measure it. I can just cut a chunk out as long as it's bigger than what is going on. That's all that matters. And I put this on both sides. You'll see in a second what I'm talking about. James, what are you doing? The foam folded up over here in a way that makes a little tent, and Jimmy just went right into it. Okay, bud. Yeah, you're done exploring. Cats, I tell you. Okay, so what we're doing, I really should have chosen a different color for the filament to print these out. I realize now this was a mistake. We're just gonna put a piece like that, and then glue it on the other side as well. So what we want to do is measure out what the actual hinge is going to be here. So I'm going to just cut this in half. Jimmy, it's not a cat bed. No. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get, you know what, the width of this ruler looks good. Hello, Dylan. Nice to see you. Welcome back. Here's what we're doing. We're just going to go bonk, bonk, like that. That's going to be the width of our hinge. Probably a bit wide, but that's okay. Better to have too much than not enough, which is true in most things. So there we go. Because we want this on both sides, so that's why we've got two. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue the head together. And then we're going to make the fabric hinge, and then we're going to glue the whole mouth plate into the skull. And then just see how it goes. If a cat fits, it sits. It's true. But there was something I wanted to talk about. Oh, yes, I remember. This is me just delaying putting off Jimmy having to be kicked out. Yeah, you're looking at me, I know. This is a little side thing because we're talking about glue. And of course, we are therefore going to be talking about the Danger Honey. This is Barge. For those of you who don't know, this is industrial contact cement, and it is the kind of thing that is generally used in professional puppet building for various reasons. So we'll get into that later, but it's also a dangerous chemical, and so you have to treat it with care. But of course, that is a big stumbling block for a lot of people. A lot of people are nervous about using this stuff with good reason. Again, if you are careful and you know how to work it, then by all means go for it. There is nothing better than this. However, one of the things I've been doing recently is testing out various adhesives to see what are the alternatives, because I just went for the thing that you should use, and I know a lot of people just don't have the ability to have a well ventilated space, or they don't want to wear the respirator mask, which is, believe me, a pain in the butt. Really, I don't like doing it, but you have to do it. But are there alternatives was the question that will work almost as well as something like Barge? And so I can actually share the preliminary results. I'm going to do a whole separate video on this, because this is a big question. I get this question every single time, and it's one of the most important things that new people need to think about. So I have tested 4 different relatively commonly available adhesives on foam. Now, this does not mean it's going to work for all things. There's other applications for, like, gluing a mouth plate in, that kind of thing, for example. But foam on foam, first test, and the results were very, very good. I tested. Show you. We got going on here. I tested spray adhesive. This happens to be Gorilla Glue brand, but other brands are available. Not sponsored. So that was this one. There we go. I also tested this stuff. Yes, it was this stuff. Oh, well, yes, and also, I'm trying to remember now. Where is that tube? There it is. Look, Gorilla brand is just what's available for me. Not sponsored, I promise. But this is Gorilla brand fabric glue. So I tested that. I also tested this Aleene's Fast Grab Tacky Glue. And there are other types of Aleene glues. This was the important thing here was the fast grab, right? Because you want to be able to stick 2 pieces together and have them stay that way. So I tested that. And then the final one, which I won't grab the glue gun, is just good old-fashioned hot glue, or bad old-fashioned hot glue, as the case may be. The good news, and here's the spoilers for those who are here with the live stream or watching on the VOD, they all worked quite well. They all have different advantages and disadvantages, which we'll all get into on the actual video. But the good news is, yes, there are viable alternatives for at least gluing foam to foam. I have to do other tests as well. But the initial results are quite promising. So, and like I said, these all work. These all work very well. This foam is connected to this other foam, and it's not coming apart, and it is fused quite well. So that's good news for everybody, including me, because Barge got really expensive and sometimes impossible to get. So yes, there are less dangerous alternatives. You still definitely want to like wear gloves and stuff, but you probably don't need to wear a respirator for most of this. So let me just put all this back, and now I fear you have to pin them in place to set. That is the thing. They don't always, like, sometimes you just have to sit there and hold them, or I guess you could pin them. I would hesitate with the pin because the pin would probably get stuck with the glue and it would pull out and rip and that kind of thing. What I ended up doing was just having to kind of hold them for at least, like, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. So that's one of the stumbling blocks, and that's where it does differ from barge. But yeah, there we go. There is alternatives, and that's, I think one of the future videos is going to be, let's make a puppet with not barge. As a kind of follow-up to the design a puppet from scratch or with accessible materials as well. You know, I want to bring more people to this. The more the better. And these are the stumbling blocks that new people often find. So if I can help deal with that, then I will. Okay, Jimmy, it's time to go. I have to kick the cat out now. Let's go, bud. Yep. Absolutely refusing to get up. Come on. Out you go. Time to seal the chamber. Okay, Jimmy has been kicked out. The door is closed. I'm going to blow my nose again just because I got to put the respirator on. And I definitely don't want my nose to run when you're wearing the respirator. So I'm going to mute the mic for a sec. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one, and hopefully will help people. That's the goal. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing, I know I'm off camera. I gotta open the window, as always. I don't know where this camera is. Oh, you can't see it. It's too low. Raise this up a little bit. Kinda. There's the window and there's the fan. Hopefully the rain isn't too. It's very rainy and stormy today. As the lighting changes. Window. Putting the fan in the window, and the fan is pointing outwards, so we're venting. Watching a new puppet maker YouTuber who uses fabric glue and pins. She uses alternative techniques. Interesting. Let me know who that is. I think we may need to network. By all means. I always want, because I never find out about new stuff. I need my community to like fill me in on stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. It's time. Time for the mask, for the gloves. I'm gonna get new gloves. I'm not gonna use the stuff that's got red dye all over them. Or am I? Yeah, these look okay. Maybe we'll do a tutorial on puppet size accessories. Need you to be more specific? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. I did that one video on altering infant clothing, if that's the kind of thing you mean. But I mean, probably yes, if I clarify what you mean. Okay. So, we got the gloves. I'm going to turn the mic. I got a little mic on my mask here so you could at least kind of understand me. We're going to turn that on. Things are going to get weird audio-wise for a second, but we're going to get the mask on. Like goggles or things you might. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a good idea.
You can do that. I mean, the quick answer is just measure it. I often will eyeball it, or that's a good place to use paper towel patterning. If you can just get a piece of paper towel and kind of draw the thing. Curious what 3D printing, I imagine it's a big, learning how to model things, yeah. Yeah, you know what, that's not a bad idea also. I can do like a beginner's 3D printing thing as well. That's a good idea. All these good ideas, all of a sudden. Turns out, people are smart. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually make the hinge. So for that, let's see. Oh no, that's open. Okay. Yeah, that's a very good idea. I'm not particularly good at 3D modeling myself, but there is software that you can use to kind of help you with that. So, for doing my 3D printing stuff, I usually use Tinkercad. I don't know if you can understand what I'm saying, but Tinkercad. It's by Autodesk, and it's for the moment at least, free web-based service. So you don't even need like to install anything. It's just in your browser. Okay, I'm gonna protect my surface here. So I'm just putting some glue. On the inside. Do that first. It doesn't really matter if you do the inside or outside first in this case. So the reason that I measured this off is because we're putting glue on here and here, but not the middle. This barge is nearly done. It's very gloppy. Tinkercad, yep, that's it. You got it. Jimmy is currently yelling at the door. I can hear him. My poor wife. Okay, so we got the first layer of glue down. We're gonna hit this with a hairdryer on cool. So for something like barge, you have to get a very specific thinner. Do not use water or alcohol. It's called toluene or something like that. I can't even remember. There is specific thinner for barge. In fact, barge makes it. Get that. Don't experiment, because these are literally dangerous chemicals. You could end up making mustard gas or something. So get the specific thinner that's for the product you're using. So barge makes a barge thinner, and that's what I would use. I don't have any at the moment. I would be using it right now if I did, but I'm not allowed, so. All right, so, just again. Yeah, that's not the time to play Mad Scientist, unfortunately. So I'm just laying this in here. This is a prototype, so I'm not being super careful. I'm being careful enough. There we go. We're just getting that on there like that. And likewise on the other side. What I should have done was make a center line. I'm just going to eyeball this. I forgot to make a center line. Make a center line, everybody. So you can line it up easily. Don't do what I just did. Okay, there we go. So let's just give this a little test here. See? Yeah, you know what? That's actually not bad. Pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna trim off the excess here. That is much better than I thought it was gonna be. This is promising. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, we got some good movement there. That's pretty good. Okay, so basically we're just going to do that, and then on the other side to kind of make it a good strong hinge. That's going to be tricky because we don't want it. We want it to be as smooth and unwrinkly as possible. That's going to be tricky in here. Couple of wrinkles you won't need to worry about, but I think you're arrested for producing mustard gas. It's not the headline I want to read in the news. No, no, no. And in this case, you do want to put glue on the fabric. You're just creating a two-layer hinge here. And in fact, it would probably be a good idea to not dry the glue quite as much for this, just in case you need to reposition it to smooth out the wrinkles. Again, this is me just experimenting, so don't take any of this as canonical. But I thought it's always helpful to see somebody who's just, who's got enough experience that they know what they're doing, but is still trying something new, right? This is good press, yeah. All right. Okay, it's mostly on camera. Good. And that was just check now. All right. Got a good coat on there. And I think I'll start with the top. Yeah, this is where it gets tricky. It just wants to go. See, this is the advantage, or one of the advantages of using the contact cement is you can lift it back up and replace it, right? You can't do that with like hot glue or something. So what I'm trying to do is get these placed as evenly and flatly as possible to avoid wrinkles. And that's actually not bad. There's a couple of wrinkles, but I'm not gonna worry. Because again, this is only on the inside. This is just structural. There's also going to be a fabric nose plate on the top of this. That's going to be black, so it will obscure any potential wrinkles. Right, see, here's a good example of why we use something like barge. Is because I'm just lifting this and repositioning it to get the wrinkles out. All right, that's not too bad. Let's go with that. Not bad for a first try. So I'm just trimming off the excess here. These are non-stick scissors, by the way. That's why I'm using them where there's adhesive around. Okay, let's see what we got. Yeah, that seems okay. We got some good lower jaw action going on there. All right, let's go for it. See what happens. So, next, we're gonna put the skull together. I am kind of rushing through this part. I know that there's some new folks, but I have covered this kind of thing plenty. There are whole playlists on the YouTube and PeerTube channels that talk about this. So if you have a question, absolutely ask. But I am just kind of powering through this, so I need to get this done because I got the secret thing after this. I will not be streaming, which I am very excited about. It's a bit off camera, isn't it? Sorry. This barge is a little too thick and gloppy for my liking. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have any thinner, so just gotta make it work. Okay. We're gonna dry this for a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is close the darts. Like so. And now there we go. One skull. So now we're going to glue the mouth plate into the skull. So, let's see. Just have a look at how that's going to go. If I can make this work, it's going to look really good. I mean, there's probably a reason people don't usually do this, right? I think we're about to find out what that reason is. Either that or I've just given away $1 million idea. Probably not. All right. Getting to the moment of truth. I hate that moment. I like the moment of self-delusion better. It's at least more fun. All right, now I'm afraid this is going to be tricky to get on camera because I want to be able to get in real close. And I'll see what I can do here. All right, so let's see. There's the bottom. So let's start there. And before I do the middle, I'm then going to do the top. A bit tricky, but it's not too bad. I feel like I'm narrating a spacewalk. All right, now we're going to just touch that fabric into the corners there. Get it hopefully nicely sealed. It's doing some interesting things to the profile, which I think I like. All right. Okay. All right. Big reveal in a second here. Let me get the gear off first. That's all closed up now. And
turn off the second mic. Big red lines on my face. Let's have a look at this. Interesting. It's doing some things I didn't really expect, but it's also kind of cool. So, it's not quite as frowny as I thought it was going to be, but it is. You can actually change the expression, like if you, because that's almost a smile, which is very strange. And I guess that's because of the way that the foam was cut. If I cut the foam differently, that would probably create a more frown thing. But you can also do that, right? That's not bad, actually. There's some personality there. And if this is all black in here, that's kind of neat. It feels really good too, interestingly enough. Because of the way the curve, the thumb just kind of sits in the little apex of the curve quite nicely. So it's very nice to perform. And it's got a big mouth. Not bad. You know what? Not bad. I really like the loose hinges. Super nice. So yeah, there we go. Wow. Slightly unexpected result. Didn't quite do what I was hoping it would do, but it did something cool. So I think we're gonna iterate on this and keep going. This is really interesting. The little curve, right? I think I got to do something slightly different to do the real frowny face. Well, which is I will keep experimenting with. But this has got some potential here. I could do something with this. So yeah, it's real good. It's got some good action in there. So I think I'll put some slightly puffy cheeks on it, and we'll cover it in fabric. And there we go. There's our first kind of iteration of this. And my thinking is I'm just going to do like little short limbs and like sort of hind frog legs that are kind of folded up. And it'll just be like a little Pac-Man frog. Nice big bulby eyes on the top, and you know, this is just the basic understructure of it, right? The devil is in the details for this kind of thing. But yeah, that moves really well. That feels good, and that's really important. This is one of the advantages of having some performance ability as well as being a builder, is because you know what you should be aiming for in terms of how the puppet moves and feels too, right? So yeah, that's all right. Well, there we go. We did it. We got through the whole agenda, which I was a little bit doubtful about. And the good part is there really isn't. It's relatively smooth. And we've got a little wrinkle over there, but that you won't see that once the skin goes on. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That's surprisingly nice. Cool. Okay. Well, there we go. What time is it? 11:43. Good enough. I usually stream, for those of you who are new, I usually stream on Thursdays from 10 a.m. till noon Eastern time. Close enough. We're 15 minutes out, and I really got nothing left to do other than the secret project, which I can't stream. So I think we're gonna call it right there. Good stream. Thank you, everybody. Next week we will be doing it again for sure. There may be more live streams, like more build streams in the future. Just because, like I said on the Trump video yesterday, I am trying to dial things up and ramp things up and get more eyeballs. So with that in mind, I'm going to start doing this, and I really don't like to, but it's just, you got to do it. You got to do the YouTuber thing of like and subscribe and tell your friends, you know, that's really, really important. I can't rely on the algorithm for views, basically, right? So I need you to help, and it is hopefully going to be picking up more. But anyway, that is the thing. I got to do the like and subscribe thing. Please do. It does matter. It affects things. Not on PeerTube or Owncast, of course, because that's my own server, so it doesn't really matter. Do whatever you like there. But on YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff, you know, follow, subscribe, like, all of that kind of thing. Comments are good as well. The more interactions you get, the better it is for the algorithm. I don't like it either, but it would help me out if you did that kind of thing. So the begging is done now. I feel unclean. However, I will move to YouTube and give it a like. Thank you very much, Ghost of Bodefeld. I appreciate it. I really do. But the most important is to just like tell people, like share it around, share stuff. That is the absolute best thing you could do for me. Other than buy a puppet, you know. But anyway, operationpuppet.com for all of the links, which is usually down here, but for some reason it's turned off. I can't remember why I did that. Oh, right, I shot a video yesterday. Anyway, operationpuppet.com is where all of my links are. Just go there and do the thing. And yeah, so we're gonna call it here, and I'm going to quit doing these extremely long, for some reason, rambly ramp-ups. I hope you have an excellent weekend. I will probably be doing some video game streaming this weekend, so stay tuned for that. Follow me on the socials. Blue Sky and Mastodon and Instagram primarily. So yeah, I hope you have a very good week. Welcome to the new people, and we will see you later.